a minister now. We welcome aboard Reverend Rick Brown.
I have all my props. You like this one the best because it says I only talk for 20 minutes and Well, I am so grateful for being here today. I remember back, I talked to you a little bit about golf, last time I was here. I don't know if those of you remembered it, but no golf today. But I did have something that I wanted to share with you, something that means a lot to me. This is the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And so I wanted to share some thoughts with you about that. Anybody remember or see my talk title? Anybody? When is different really the same? When is different really the same? So I'm hoping that after I get through sharing with you that you'll be able to answer that question. But what about 9/11? Can you remember where you were?
Yes, sir.
And what you were doing and how that day unfolded? And I do too. I was just waking up, turned the TV on, doing the morning ritual, so that as I turned on the TV, I saw the towers and the first plane had just hit. And so I was like, what? What's happening here? So it was like a bit of disbelief of what was happening. And so then I just sat down in front of the TV and I was just like, I'm not going to work until later. I'm going to see what's happening. I'm going to understand what's happening. And so then I went through that. And as you know, the events unfolded for that day. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But do you have things that triggers your memory or remembering of 9/11? Well, for me, one is I have a jacket. I used to be a medic, an event medic, so I would go and my motto was we save everybody one Band-Aid at a time. That was the motto. But I had a jacket that I wore, and on the back of the jacket I had this huge patch, and it was the Twin Towers and the fire department, police department, and it said, never forget. And so at 90 degrees, I decided not to bring a second jacket. So I left that one at home. But the other thing that I have is, most of you know my like of golf. And so I got this ball marker, and afterwards, if you want to look at it, I can share it with you. But on one side, it says, never forget 911. And on the other side of it, it says 2977, all gave some gave all. United we stand. And so that's my reminder. I probably look at that more off the golf course than I do on the golf course. But what really happened that day? So yes, I just said 2,977 people were killed that day. How many people were injured? 6,000. 6,000 people were injured. But something that just jumped out at me as I learned about the more details, 91,000 people came to help. 91,000 people came to help that day. And as I look at that, I go, wait, that's a lot of people. A lot of people rushing to the center of danger to help because that was the right thing to do. Now, us over here on, well, I guess you aren't on the California coast, but you're close. But us over here, you just can't jump on a plane and go to New York. Planes weren't flying, and so it's kind of like in your inside. I want to do something, but I can't do anything. But I can say some prayers. So I said a lot of prayers that day. But for me, it's like, what else could I be doing? And so I had to stick with prayers because I couldn't go over there. But it really triggered something in me to kind of look deeper into myself, into those people that were around me. And so a lot of people, I don't know if you've heard this before, but 9/11 was a tragic event, but 9/12 was the most marvelous day in American history because of all the people that came to help, all the people throughout the nation that even though they weren't part of New York, they were kinder to each other, they were more understanding of each other, they had something in common to talk about. And so think of that feeling on the day after, the patriotism, the caring, and all that you had on the day after 9/11. So what I want to share with you today is Delta Flight 15. Have any of you heard of Delta Flight 15? Well, I hadn't heard about it until I read about it. So Delta Flight 15 is departing Frankfurt, Germany, and it's headed over to Atlanta. But on its way to Atlanta, 9/11 happens. All planes are grounded. And so they said, well, wait a minute, what are we gonna do? So the closest plane, landing spot, airport, was Gander, Newfoundland. Gander, Newfoundland. And so they asked the Canadian Tower for permission to land, and they got that permission without any hesitation, and they didn't know what was going on. And so they landed at Gander, and they found out that they were one of 52 planes that had landed there that day. One of 52. And then they were instructed to stay on the plane. They couldn't get off. So you know how airplane people kind of grumble, and, kind of grumble even if the peanuts are short, or how come I can't have a full can of soda? But imagine they're there on the tarmac along with all these other planes, and they can't be playing. So then they hear through the PA system what had happened, and so they're hearing what's happening, and so they're like, aghast and shocked and all, and so they see 52 other planes there, so they know they can't make a big deal about this because, hey, there's 52 other planes in the same exact predicament. And so they sat there, and so they ended up sitting there until the next morning. It was their turn, so they could get off the plane. So they got off the plane, and how many planes were there?
52.
52. Well, guess what? There was 10,500 passengers. You want to guess the population of Gander? 10,200. So there were more passengers than the population.
Wow.
And so what happened is it was their turn to get off the plane, so they got off the plane, they went in, they got the immigration, they got checked in with the Red Cross, and then they went on school buses. And they went on school buses all around Gander within a 45 kilometers, so I guess that's like 27 miles, I think. I did it on Google. But anyway, so all of these passengers were kept together. They closed all high schools, all lodging, all halls, anything that could hold people, they closed it so that the passengers could be taken care of. So they had sleeping accommodations, and then all high school students were required to volunteer. Required. And then all of the residents made food. They made food and brought it to these 10,000 some odd people. And so they had food, and they had a place to sleep. They were given tokens so they could wash their clothes. They were even given excursions because they didn't know how many days they were going to be there. So they got excursions. They got to go on hikes. They went and looked at the lakes, and they did all of this. And just imagine that number, 10,500 people being taken care of at this level. And so then it was 2 days later, then it was time to go back. That the airspace was open around the United States. And so the buses went around, picked people up, took them to their proper plane. And once they got to their plane, on Delta 15, they started hearing about it. So the people came in the door of the aircraft, and it was like they were on a cruise. They were explaining how people came in. They were on first name basis. They were the best buddies. They had spent this time together. They were exchanging phone numbers. They were bonded. They were brought together through this experience, and they were happy. You know, it was the whole thing of the experience in Gander, Newfoundland. And so they took off, headed for Atlanta, and somebody came up to talk on the PA system, and they say, you don't let a passenger talk on the PA system, so, unless you know all the jokes like you do in Southwest. But say, no, you can't. But they let them talk on it, and so they ended up creating a trust account, and people on the plane committed $14,000 for the high school kids that gave up everything to help for those kids. And so then there was a doctor on board, and he volunteered to set up the trust, and he also agreed to match the funds. So whatever was raised. And so then he took it a bit further and shared with corporate America, Delta Airlines, and a few others, and the trust fund grew to 1.5 million. 1.5 million. So 134 high school students got help in their school. That's kind of like a thank you for what happened. So how do you feel when you hear this story about Gander, Newfoundland? How do you feel? Anybody? Overwhelmed?
Yes.
Warm and fuzzy? What about?
Grateful.
Grateful? So it's a good feeling, right? And so it's unlike the feelings that you have right now whenever you read Facebook or social media and the vaccine or no vaccine or the Democrat or the Republican. I actually had to talk myself into saying that out loud because I didn't want you guys to throw anything at me or oh no, where is it going with this? But anyway, that feeling, that feel-good feeling was awesome. Have you ever experienced that feel-good feeling on something that you've done? Is it something that's in your life all the time? Every day? How many of you are in the Facebook, let me type out an essay for this person because they don't agree with me? Have you ever been in that, I'm typing out the essay? A few people, yeah. But look at these people at Gander. Do you think that they just woke up one day and said, we're going to be good people? And the world is going to have an event that drops 52 planes on our target, and we're going to be ready. Do you think that community grew up with that thought in their mind? No, they didn't. But what they did is they had a foundation of good people. They had a foundation of doing the right thing. They had a foundation of reaching out, not having to be asked. Now maybe it's just because they don't have Facebook in Gander, I don't know. But they made a conscious choice. And as you look at it and hear the story, it wasn't one or two people saying, rah, rah, look at me. It was the whole community. It was the kids. It was the adults. Everybody came together for this. And so what my challenge to you today is how can you, in your life, put aside the social media antics and the things that kind of give you a frustration in the day, how can you get rid of that? How can you get rid of that and not let it bother you? See, because you can't really go, oh, it doesn't bother me, but inside you're like World War III, you know, you're punching it out and you're so mad, but outside you're like, oh yeah, everything's fine. No, you can't do that. It's got to be good on the inside as well as the outside. So how can you do that? How can you do that? Well, there's a way. There's a way. And I'm not going to tell. No. Sorry, I can't. But anyway, got to break up a little bit. Anyway, let's hear what Holmes had to say. And I think it's so important. I'm going to read it twice. I'm going to read it twice. when we awaken the mind to an awareness of this divinity within us and recognize that this same presence must be in everyone, in everything, we cannot have any feeling of aloneness. We cannot meet a stranger. We cannot recognize an enemy. We cannot know any sense of separation. You know, we say this in our movement, we are one. How many of you have really thought about what does that mean? We are one. Oneness. You know, it's like, okay, it starts with an O. Yes. But have you really dove into that? And the reason that you want to dive into it is because you get to the inner truth. And the inner truth is that God's within you. And God's within everybody all the time. There is no hey, I'll get back with you. God's with you all the time. And as a matter of fact, when I look at Joy, I see me. Because of the God in her is the same as the God in me. And most of you I don't even know. But I see the God in you. Because I know the God in me. And so that's the challenge. You know, it's a cop-out. It's easy to go, let me get on Facebook. How many are on Facebook right now? How many of you? But anyway, and for you watching on Facebook, I don't mean anything by it. Just keep watching. But anyway, you have to make a conscious choice. A conscious choice to be present. It's really easy whenever there's a controversy to pick a side. Really easy. And either you pick a side or you hide. I mean, that's kind of the choices that you have. I'm either going to stand for this or stand for this, or I'm going outside. You know, that's it. That's the choices. And so what I'm challenging you today is that you don't have to take a stand. You can have your opinion, but as you're having this conversation with somebody, know with the surety that the God in you is the God in them. And so raise above. Go above the situation of vaccines or Democratic or Republican or you're my neighbor or you're not my neighbor. Get above it. Get above it. And remember that. So as we're going down this path, and my talk title again was, what was it? Okay. When is different really the same? Different is really the same always. Because the God in me is the God in you. The God in me is the God in you. So I would like to close out with a little prayer. I know that God is all there is. I know that as we sit here, we know with a surety that God is within us. And I also know that we have a choice. We have a choice of love, or we have a choice of not love. Whatever that label is, I don't want to even recognize it. Because God doesn't recognize it, I'm not even going to give it a name. It's not love. So the thing that we embrace today is love. And the thing that we embrace today is the God within, is the God in you. I'm so grateful for this opportunity to speak with you and deliver this message. And I hope that you leave here today making your life better, your day better, and those around you better. And you stand and you're knowing. And don't move. Have it steadfast and knowing that God is all there is. And that the God in me is the God in you. And so it is.
So it is.